Hey everybody, today we're going to be reviewing the wild card slot in Bright Lights. So, everybody who's a mechanologist player is over the moon, right? Freaking out about all these new mech cards. Really competitive players are analyzing maybe how strong mechanologist is probably going to be. And we're not really talking about those two new heroes. Different thing entirely, right? We're talking about the class cards that come in Bright Lights in the wild card spot. And we're going to be giving them two grades. Grade one, how strong are they? Meta defining. Are they going to fix or increase the power of a deck? And two, how strong their thematics are. Are they helping the class? Are they filling a gap? Are they bringing something new? Are they like very thematic? Do they really do something interesting, right? So yeah, easy thing. A, B, or C. A, B, or C. I don't think we're going to really have any Fs or Ds in this one. I don't think so. But yeah, let's dive into it. All right, we're going to kick things off in reverse order today, starting from Evo 247, War of Bologna. Bolton's getting a lot of love. Last set was very good to him. Very good to him. Looks like the trend is going to be continuing. This is a light warrior card, so it's pretty much specifically for Bolton. Nobody else is really benefiting from this card. But it is a legendary helmet, temper 2, super important, right? We all know how thematic it is for warriors to be able to block, how on brand it is for them to have a lot of equipment. And it says 2 resources, destroy this. The next time you attack this turn, you may charge your hero's soul. If a yellow card is charged this way, draw a card and go again. So this card's pretty much a combo enabler, right? You can basically turn on charge cards for 2 resources on any of your really big turns. And more importantly, I think the temper 2, it's just good, right? Any piece of equipment with temper 2 is pretty much pretty far ahead of a lot of the competition, I would say. 3 health is nothing to scoff at, right? It's 2 breakpoints you can stop with this thing, which is very relevant. But yeah, I think this card's really good. It's really on brand with Bolton, and really on brand with his new theme that's come out. I think they're kind of pushing Bolton more towards that yellow light thematic that he didn't necessarily have to follow before. And I think the card's good, right? I think it's going to be in Bolton decks. I think this is a nice fit for the hero. It does some pretty cool things. It enables some pretty slippery combos, which Bolton's kind of known for at this point. So yeah, I would say card thematically gets a solid like A. Solid A. I think it fits. It's what Bolton wants to do. The art is thematically perfect. The blocking values are perfect. And then from a usability, from a meta perspective, I don't know if it's really going to push Bolton over the edge still, but I do think it's good. Solid A. Solid A on strength, right? Temper 2 is really already going to make it like a solid A, B. And then the text is actually pretty conditionally relevant. All right, next on our list, we have Tome of Imperial Flame. 0 cost, red, non-blocking, non-attack action, with go again on it, which is very important. And it says draw a card. If you're royal, instead draw 2 cards. So what makes this one interesting is it's targeting specifically draconic heroes and royal heroes, right? Because the card isn't that good if you're not royal, to be honest. You may pitch 2 red cards. If you don't, banish your hand. So, right now, you're pretty much, this is pretty much a draw my card, I would say. There's some benefits to any hero who can use Furnace, I guess, right? Because you're trading 2 red cards for 3 resources. That's not bad. It's not a bad trade. It's technically trading up, but Fi typically wants to throw a blue out there to start his turns. Dromai, specifically the attack action variant, the more aggressive down to the floor, no blues, right? Not big dragon Dromai, benefits pretty greatly from this card because this card pretty much means 2 ash and 3 resources for free, right? And I already saw a tweet that went out saying, a no blue Dromai deck is now able to summon Tumultai. Which I don't think is really what this card's going to be used for 90% of the time. I also don't really know if Tumultai is going to make the list because of just Imperial Flame. But you know what card will? Dominia. Dominia is going to always be able to be played now. The card's nuts. It's much more affordable. And then you can also run some of the more expensive dragons. Like you can get a Vinny out with this card for free. Like you play this and you get a Vincentric. That's gross. That's really gross. So thematically, I mean, it kind of fits the draconic theme, right? It ties into an already existing legendary chess piece. It fits into the draconic theme of being all red decks mostly, or like leaning on the red side. So I would say it gets like a solid B plus. I mean, I think it's a little bit more targeted to Dromite, but there might be a Draconic hero coming that is going to benefit greatly from this card too. So B plus A, yeah, another really on point thematic card. I think we're going to see that a lot with these cards that were teased. And then from a usability perspective, it's like a C or D. Honestly, if you're anybody but Dromite, which it becomes A plus. Specifically Empress Royal Dromite. So it's a little niche, like a little niche. You have to be Dromite. You kind of have to be Royal for this card to be worth anything. See, it requires 2 talents to even like function, which is a pretty big commitment. But I think the commitment is actually maybe worth the reward. Maybe. It's actually kind of hard to tell. So if you are specifically playing attack action Royal Dromite, this card's cracked. And otherwise, I think it's okay, right? And if you're not Royal, this card's bad, right? Contest the Minefield. 2 cost blue, 2 block, right? So that's a little different than most of the wizard blues, right? So 2 block, blue pitch, 2 cost, non-attack, action, aura. And it states all heroes get -1 intellect. At the start of your turn, destroy this. Yeah, this card is, I would say it's a little hard to rate, to be honest, because -1 intellect is like one of the strongest things you can do. It's like right next to drawing a card. It's like nuts in a 4-card game, right? You have 4 cards in your hand, and if you lose one of them, like 1/4 of your power is gone. 25% of your theoretical power just disappeared from 1 card being played by your opponent. So you're pretty much playing this card to rip out 1 entire card from your opponent. And even though it says destroy this at the start of your turn, wizards obviously operate on a different axis. So Kano can play this on your turn, right? He can play this on your turn, do a big amount of damage to you while you're attacking. You draw up to 3. He starts his turn, passes. Now you have 3 cards and he has a 4-card hand again. Yeah, okay. I mean, I wouldn't say it's amazing, but maybe if like the Kano is some sort of god and pitch stacks this perfectly to figure out a way to get you on 3 cards on his kill turn or something crazy. But I don't think it's super great in Kano, to be honest. I don't think it's super good. I don't think it's going to change anything. But in Icelander, it's pretty much on theme with her powerful cards. I would say it's not as good as Channel Like Frigid, but not very many cards are as good as Channel Like Frigid. But she's going to play it on your turn. She's going to use Tunic. She's going to wand you, right? So she's going to pitch a blue, pop Tunic, wand you for 3. You're going to lose an intellect, and then she's going to start her turn. It's dead, right? She has no impact to her, right? Throws a wounded bull at you for 8. You only have 3 cards. You're probably going to eat the 8. Or she does something even more annoying, right? Like sets up a Channel Like Frigid, punishes you. You can't do anything to stop her. And she just did her thing, right? She rotated a card out of your hand, hit you for 3 damage, stalled the game out longer. And then I can see this card becoming like the biggest mind F of all time in the mirror, right? Like you could both be like trying to set this up, pitch stacking this, doing crazy things, go to your kill turn, rip away 3 AB from their hand, do your wombo combo, and wipe them out. So yeah, I think it's an interesting card. On the thematics, I think the card's insane, right? It's cool. It's got some hoops you have to jump through. I think it fits the wizard kind of like arcane lock like thematics really well. Like a solid B plus on the thematics. I mean, I'd give it an A. Give it an A. On the meta defining, I would say like B. I think it's like a B. I don't see this being like. It's very strong, but I don't see it being like crazy. And I'm pretty sure they're trying to push Icelander out of the game. Like I'm pretty sure in Icelander this card is much stronger than in probably any other wizard. But it's like a B. Kano's like a C. So I think it's good. I just don't know. I'm gonna have to see it played a couple more times and see what these crazy freaks of nature with their pitch stacking can do to like really make this card broken. But I would give it like a B. All right, Sonata Phantasma. Viscera gets another specialization. So we're starting to see specialization quantities increase. Like it was kind of like an unwritten rule for a long time that you got like 2. Then Dora got 3. And now several heroes are approaching the 3-4 range, right? So specializations no longer seem to be a small quantity thing. It seems to be a way that they're trying to balance non-talented heroes, right? And I think that makes sense. Talented heroes get an entirely additional card pool to play with. Non-talented heroes, they're gonna have to get specializations. If you want to buff them and not somebody else in the same class, right? So we have a blue block 3 non-attack action. Runeblade loves those words, right? They love blue non-block, or they love blue 3 block non-attack actions. And it is an XX. So, kind of one of the follows on trend with Viscerai's kind of weird pay cards, right? So create X Runeblade or create X Runechant tokens. If X is 6 or greater, target hero discards 3 random cards. So I think this card is only super relevant if you're trying to OTK Viscerai. It's just another way for you to dump your cards to turn them into Runechants to try and cycle while so you don't get stuck. Because one of the things that can happen is like if your opponent notices you're stuck and you pass, like they can set things up, they can take their time, they can do crazy things. So I think it's okay in like OTK Viscerai, and it gives them another avenue to just try and do that. But in normal Viscerai, I don't really think this card's going to be particularly strong, especially with how strong most of their other cards is, right? To get the X equals 6 to make your opponent discard all 3 of their cards, like to discard 3 random cards from their hand, that's a lot of cards you have to pitch, right? It's a lot. You have to have like 4 blues. You have to have 4 blues to pay for that. So it's going to be really, really, really difficult to ever do that, right? So the card basically says make 2 Runechants and pay a bunch of cards. You could do things like set it up with other Runechant generators. So like, you can play a non-attack action and then pay for this. You'll get your Viscerai trigger. You can Mordred Tide this out. But a lot of the time, if you're playing Mordred Tide, you'd probably want to do it with something a little bit better. Like instead of making 4, you'd probably want to make 6 or more, right? You'd probably want to do like Mordred Tide, Mavrian Skies, read the runes, or Mordred Tide, tutor card, read the runes. You'd probably not want this one, but it's a blue block 3. So on class thematics for Viscerai, totally cool. Opens up a whole new avenue, right? A plus, right? I think it's cool. They saw a weaker side of Viscerai and a part of Viscerai that a lot of players love, and they are giving more support for it. And it doesn't really push the aggro Viscerai over the edge at all. And then as far as like meta defining power, as a C, in my opinion, C. I don't see this like breaking anything, Could be wrong. Maybe these OTK Viscerais are going to finally figure it out and crack the code, but I think it's a C. All right. Intoxicating Shot. 0 cost, blue, block 3, 4 damage arrow. Honestly, this card is incredible. I love this card so much. Riptide is so cool. And since this is a Riptide specialization, Lexi's not getting buffed. Neither is Azalea. So again, targeting the weaker of the class, kind of like what they've been doing over here, a few times, targeting a very specific hero or a very specific build. And then this card says, when this hits a hero, they create a courage and quicken token. So why would they ever want to do that? Why would you want to give your opponent a quicken token and a courage token? Well, it turns on all your traps. So this is kind of like a pick your poison card, right? And I love cards like this. I think this is very much like Scowling Fleshbag, where it's a card that makes you think really hard when you play it, and it makes your opponent think really hard when they interact with it, right? Scowling Fleshbag is an example. As long as that's on the table, your opponent knows that they should try and bluff it out on an inopportune turn, so you can't use it on their wombo combo. It's kind of the same thing on your side, is like you need to make sure that you use Scowling Fleshbag on a turn that is relevant, not on a bluff turn, right? Intoxicating Shot is the same way. You're going to send 4 damage with a blue, and your opponent has to look at this and go, do I really want to take 1? Do I really want to take 4? I mean, I'm getting a quicken token. I'm getting a courage token. But if the Riptide's sending this at me, does that mean he's a collapsing trap or a pitfall trap or something really gross and terrible? And, it's like a thinking game. I love it. I love this card. Honestly, this might be one of my favorite cards that they've spoiled so far. I think it's so thematic, like S tier thematic, 100%. It's exactly the kind of like balance, complicated decision making, interesting interaction with like Riptide and his traps and his hero ability. Perfect. And then as far as like usability, meta defining, I don't think this is like a broken card, right? And I think we're going to see that a lot with these. There's not really any like, wow, that card's dumb, that this is going to break the game. Closest we probably going to get to that is like that wizard card, and it depends on the scenario and blah blah blah. But I think this is a solid B because its floor is a 0 cost 3 block arrow that does 4 damage, which is 4 damage on a blue. Not bad, right? 4 damage on a blue that costs 0. It's not bad. And then you can really use this card to pitch, get into like the second cycle and chip at your opponent and maybe set up some crazy, some crazy trap kill with this thing, right? Make your opponent guess, right? Or take 2 cards from them. In the end cycle, Riptide's going pretty long anyways. Taking 2 cards sometimes is worth it, right? I love that card. Love it. Emboldened Blade. Another 0 cost blue, 3 blocking action, right? And this one's kind of interesting. Turn a face down card in any arsenal face up. If it's a defense reaction, destroy it, and your next weapon attack this turn gains +1. So keyword on that card being any, right? I mean, some of these cards seem like they kind of interact with Ultimate Pit Fight a little bit, which is kind of fun. We're getting a little bit more on the target anywhere and anytime kind of cards. But what makes this important is that you could use this in any of the games where like you thought you would use a D-React and you don't want it there and it's clogging your arsenal, killing you, you can kind of use this in like the mirror grindy games, right? Just give yourself a +1 to destroy a D-React that wasn't going to be worth anything, or I don't know. I think it's an interesting new type of card that we're seeing, right? Even at its absolute worst, it's a blue block 3, and its absolute worst, it's a intelligence like gathering card. You can just see what's in their arsenal, which could be relevant. There's some times where you really want to know what that card is, right? Is it a shunt? Is my weapon attack going to kill me? Do they have the Seeing Steel Blade? Is that a max V? I don't know, right? Kind of making scenarios up there. But thematically, I think it's an interesting avenue. I kind of like it. A 0 cost for a theoretical +1 is on the weaker side. But I think it's got enough mind games. I'd give this like a B on thematics, It's interesting. It's nifty. It's something we haven't really seen before. And my only problem with it on the thematic side is like I could kind of see this going to several other classes and I wouldn't like really think twice about it. Like this could be a Guardian card. I don't know. It could be, right? And I don't know if this was just printed as a Guardian card, would I have been like, this should have been a warrior card, right? I don't think so. And then on the meta relevancy, I'd give it like a C. I think it's going to have like maybe an edge case use sometimes, but I don't really see it being like, wow, that really fixed Dorinthia. You know what I mean? She's already kind of strong, so I don't think it's going to take much to push Dorinthia over the edge. But yeah, it's an interesting card in an interesting set. Let's leave it at that. All right, Wax Off, 0 cost, blue, 2 block defense reaction. Yeah. Funny art, but this one states, if you played Wax On this turn, create a Zen State token. Zen State tokens give you additional blocking on a token. I'll pull it up on the screen. Yeah, this one is kind of sick. I don't think it's that good. I think it has use cases, especially because Wax On is kind of unique in the way it operates as well. But I really like this. I like the thematics on this a lot. And I think it's something that Ninja needs is a little bit more flexibility. And, they already kind of had busted D-React. So maybe pushing ninjas towards this direction of like ebb and flow attack and defense and more unique defense reactions and like the ability to evade damage. Part of me thinks they're like hinting at a new ninja hero. Part of me does, right? That's my thought. Part of me thinks there's going to be like a weird defensive ninja coming soon, which would round the class out a lot. So thematics, I think this card's like an A+. I think it's a really interesting direction to push, just typically speaking, degenerate aggro deck, right? I think it's a really interesting way to push that class into a kind of a new pocket. I really think that the defensive side of Ninja has like kind of been a little underexplored. And then from a meta perspective, I think it's a C also. None of these cards really like go up too much into the crazy tier, right? I don't think Wax Off is going to push Katsu over the edge. I don't think it's going to push Phi over the edge. I think you're going to see a lot of interesting defensive decks come out, like, a blue for 7, so Kodachi 5, especially with some of those cards that were teased in the Professor set. So maybe it will actually become an A tier card if some new version of like hyper tanky ninja comes out, like Turtle Ninja. and it can somehow like survive and fatigue and still try and do some combos and stuff like that. But at a cursory glance, I think it's like mid-pack. It's okay. Wax On is already kind of niche. It only really affects like specific card types. So, and it's a two block majestic. So really you'd have to make the Zen State token to get past that. 2 block, but it could be sick. Could be really cool. Could be. All right. My personal spoiler card. All right. So I did an entire video talking about Smashing Performance as a card, right? As a card, not about the thematics or the class or what it's doing, right? But just is the card decent and the math behind the card. And I think, as far as cards are concerned, it's not terrible, right? It's actually pretty good. If you consider what it does, it's got an Intimidate. It does 6 damage. It destroys an item. If you build your deck a very particular way and you're a little bit thoughtful with it, it's going to destroy the item at like an 80-something% success rate. It gets higher than that if you go higher on your 6 density. So it becomes a predictable card that does a predictable thing, and it's not interactable. So destroying an item, good. If items are good, the card's good. Like who would have thought, right? And then, but on thematics, right? I think it fits inside of what brutes are known for, which is like the random discarding, the non-blocking, and destroying items. Because we are pretty much the only class that does that on command, right? You have to run a generic to destroy an item on any other hero. However, it doesn't really fill a gap because we had it. We were already the best at destroying items, right? We were the best bar none. So they just gave us another way to do that for the other version of Rhinar, which I think is fine. I think it's fine, right? I think it's a good thing to give Rhinar players the ability to play both versions and have the same tools. Right, the more aggressive cheetah versus the defensive one. I love the art on the card so much, but it doesn't fix a hole that Rhinar has. Some of these other cards you saw, they're like very specifically targeted to fix a hole, right? Riptide's card is a great example. Empress Dromai's card is a great example. Bolton's card is a good example. A lot of these cards are good examples. They're like targeting Viscerai's card. They're fixing an interesting hole. This one doesn't do that, right? We already had the best item destruction. So I think it's fine. I'd give thematics like a B, clearly it's not trying to fix the issue with Rhinar's balance or Brute's balance in general, right? Since Brutes are the second lowest performing class in the game as far as like tournaments are or living legend points. The worst class right now is only Assassins, but they're like the newest archetype in the game. So they're probably going to pass us soon, except for Arachne's holding that down pretty bad, to be honest. So it doesn't fix anything with Brute, but it gives us a new tool to deal with Mechanologists in the Mechanologist set. So B on thematics, I'm going to have another video talking about like what's wrong with Rhinar, but what's wrong with Brutes. But yeah, B on thematics. And I've already defended this card to the death. If you need to destroy items because items are good, the card is fine. It's a B. If it had block value on it, the card probably would be an A. It's the only thing really keeping it out of being a good card, in my opinion, is like it's a non-block, even with the random on it, whatever. But I'd give it like a BB. Card's okay. Is it for you? Is it for me? Maybe not. And then we have our final. Oh, I guess we have 2 cards left, but Already Dead. Speaking of assassins, you have a red 2 cost, 3 blocking, 6 power attack action. Assassin attack action with contract on it. So it is, it vibes with Arachne's hero text, right? You are contracted to banish opponent's non-action cards. Whenever you complete this contract, create a silver token. When this hits a hero, banish the top card of their deck and a defending card. This one is, at first I was like, oh, that seems cracked. But then I realized maybe it's not that good. I'm not sure. It's hard to tell. It seems okay, right? Because non-action cards are probably the least represented cards in the game, right? So you're really trying to hit defense reactions, attack reactions, instants. That's pretty much it. And those are few and hard to come by. So I would say, as far as like fulfilling the contract, you have a pretty low chance. And then this is the first card, I think, that says banish a defending card, right? So obviously, if you can manage to play an attack reaction, get this to go over, hit your opponent, you can then banish a defending card. And now suddenly it's a pretty decent spike turn, right? And you throw in your daggers in there. You can pitch 2 blues, dagger, dagger, send this, and then your opponent has to guess how much you can pump it to. So I think it's actually pretty good. It's just the contract is hard to pull off, I would say. But as far as Arachne's cards are concerned, I would put this like pretty high up there. Like this seems to be, to me, and I played Assassin for a little bit, right? This seems to me to be a pretty significant upgrade. And then Azuri can also use this card quite easily, right? It comes in at 6. If your opponent guesses wrong, you're going to banish one, and maybe they fulfilled their contract, and maybe they banished my Blood Rush Bellows. I think it's pretty strong. This might be like power-wise an A. It's up there. I think this one's strong. I think it's got room for exploration too. And thematic-wise, honestly, this card's an A too. So cool. I love it. I love that it supports both heroes too. Yeah, I really like this card. I thought about it a little bit there at the end, and I liked it more at the end of my own thought process. And then final card that was revealed during this last week of spoilers, right? Shriek Razors. While this is in your graveyard, you may recur it for 2 silver, a lot like all of the other assassin equipment. And then attack reaction, destroy this. Target attack action card defending an assassin attack gets -1 defense. Yeah, this card's hot. I mean, it's basically it existing on the table is a permanent, I can hit you with any one of my on hits for the rest of the game if you don't respect the card in my hand, right? And because you're going to have an open arsenal all the time, right? You're going to play the card from your arsenal. You're going to be holding maybe one card, right? And that's either going to go into your arsenal or you're going to use it to pop these razors, right? And that's on the mind F level that assassin like salivates for, right? That's like that. I could see this, and it's recurable. It blocks 1. It's battle worn. Does all the things. It fits into Azuri's game plan pretty well. It fits into Arachne's game plan, I think, even better. Honestly, the card's amazing. Thematics, S, A plus, S, right up there, top. Usability, meta defining. I don't think it's going to push them much higher than they are now, but this card's probably going to be used. It's an A plus. Yeah. That's it. That's all the cards. Look at that. 1 week down, and soon we're going to have the never-ending supply of Mechanologist cards to freak out about. I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you around.